Let's face it, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably been exposed to some form of social media. In fact, you're actually using it right now. So dear healthcare student, this is your official guide to social media. Did you know that 85% of 132 medical schools in the US have Facebook? But anyway, let's cut to the chase. Here's how you can avoid looking like a complete tool in the future. Let's start off with the basics. The photos you post on social media can have a huge effect on how people will perceive you. Because let's face it, no matter how much people say they don't judge others on first impression, we know that's not true. We all love posting pictures and sharing our extremely exciting lives on social media for all our friends, but you need to be careful to avoid posting certain things. Firstly, inappropriate pictures. No one wants to see them. Trust us. We know you had a great time last Friday with your pals, but your future patients won't be too happy to see your wild weekend antics. And secondly, patient confidentiality. Don't expose your patients because it probably won't end too well for you. The photos you post reflect on who you are and what you're like. Don't be that person who advertises every embarrassing thing they've ever done in their life. Lastly, private pictures. They need to stay private. Now, this might seem pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised at what people tend to post online. Avoid sharing pictures of your personal identity, such as your passport and your driver's license. And yes, we know you probably live in a very fancy house and have the latest car, but posting these things online only puts a target on your back, not to mention making it 10 times easier for people to track you down if things go AWOL at the hospital. Now, photos aside, you also need to be careful about the content you post. For example, race is a very sensitive issue because voicing your controversial opinions about race, however neutral they may be, can be viewed subjectively. In some cases, even following groups associated with racial humor can be taken in offense. Although this may not be obvious to you, for some medical graduates, that's not the case, where they were part of groups such as Perverts United and Japan, Leave the Whales Alone. There's a very fine line between your personal and professional identity, and more often than not, if you lead a double life on social media, it can get tiring. It's important to note that almost nothing is private in the online context, and it's difficult to separate and maintain a personal and professional identity alone. They're bound to crash into each other at some point. So here are a few tips. Before you ask yourself whether or not it's appropriate to post something online, take the conservative approach and assess the content to determine if it's suitable in an online context, because anything can be breached in a public space. However, it's not as bad as we set it out to seem. You can use your social media to do good. Just don't follow in a certain president's footsteps. Most medical students were born during the period of the technological boom. Most medical students were also born in a period whereby even the slightest scandal on social media is publicly scrutinized in the medical world. You probably grew up in an environment where you didn't have to think twice before posting anything on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Up until now, you may think you have a right to express yourself, but how much can you say? One of the hardest challenges is to acknowledge that social media is part of your professional identity. We all have political views, we all have spiritual views, and similarly, we all come from a different racial background. So when do the sparks turn into a flame? To illustrate this, here's an example. We all heard of that Starbucks controversy, where the plain winter-themed red cup was interpreted by the public as war on Christmas. While the cup is simply a device to hold your morning fuel and is by no means weapons of mass destruction, the 4-Cup was attacked not because of what it represented, but because of who it represented, Starbucks. Like Benjamin Parker once said in the Spider-Man movie, with great power comes great responsibility. So when you recognize and represent yourself as a healthcare professional, you need to gain the public's trust by acting professionally. One study analyzed information on 82 medical graduates' public Facebook accounts, revealing that 22% of users were associated with groups that discredit the medical profession by involving derogatory humor. This can affect your future career, such as finding placement and residency programs. In fact, presenting a golden CV may not be enough if there is social misconduct. The International Journal of Medical Ethics states that between 1/5 and 2/3 of employers conduct internet searches on their employees, including social networking sites. So what can you do to avoid that? Firstly, don't talk about any political issue because many people feel strongly about their views. If you are on the opposite side of what they believe in, their opinion of you might change, and as a result, your patients may deem you unfit to treat. To be successful, not only do you have to be skilled, but also liked and trusted by your clients. What you post on your profile determines your patient's opinion of you and how you're perceived in general. So let's go back to the whole social network scandal saga. At least once every other week, we all see stories all over the internet and the news where an unfortunate healthcare professional is getting fired, sued, blacklisted, or even chased down by an angry stampede of people holding up their metaphorical pitchforks. In short, something very bad happens when someone posts something that the majority of people disagree with, whether it be a video, joke, or a picture. So before you want to post anything online, it might be a good idea to just stop and think. Is it a good idea to be posting this for everyone to see? Because as you may or not be aware, anything you post online is going to be there forever. There's no magic undo button, unless you have a time machine or the ability to wipe everyone's memory away, which I'm pretty sure you can't. Not yet, anyway. It's always best to keep your content PG-ish, or at least keep it simple, as even the smallest thing can land you in some pretty bad situations. You might think it's an innocent comment, joke, picture, or even a video, but some people may disagree with you, and you might end up becoming like Jack. Speaking of Jack, maybe it's time we should introduce you to him. Meet Jack. Jack is a 5th-year medical student. Jack did something stupid. Jack is now dead. Let's see how that happened. Jack was supposed to be having another average day, drinking an average amount of coffee on an average-looking desk, but Jack was anything but average. You see, he was a healthcare professional, and little did he know that his life was going to be turned upside down, never to be recovered from again. It all started when Jack came across a case that he's only seen in the textbooks. The patient that came in had walking corpse syndrome, and Jack's immediate reaction was to whip out his phone and take a video. He then had the genius idea to post said video on Facebook without the patient's consent. Jack fell asleep, unaware that he was about to make the headline at Fox News. In a matter of a few hours, the video went viral, and one of the patient's guardians stumbled upon it. It's safe to say they were understandably furious. That same family member came into the hospital, fuming and screaming at the top of their lungs. The patient's guardian took matters to court, and Jack faced severe disciplinary action. The hospital had to fire him, and the cascade of events uncoiled. Jack couldn't get another job, he couldn't afford to pay rent, he became homeless because his parents disowned him, and later that winter he died from hypothermia, standing outside his parents' house. Okay, maybe it's not as extreme as that, but we're trying to make a point here. So to finish things off, here are a few tips. Avoid adding patients and their relatives. Avoid posting information that regards or gives reference to a patient. And when in doubt of the content you're posting, take the conservative approach and bear in mind that caution with social media also includes the connections you make online. The types of friends you add on social media can be representative of your character. Consequently, be familiar with the people you add on social media. Ensure that your settings are private for your personal account. Don't post anything that can offend people. Avoid talking about race, politics, and religion. And lastly, Google yourself. Who knows what the public can see that you can't? And just remember that if the negatives of social media outweigh its benefits, it would cease to exist. So enjoy your highly controlled, stress-inducing social media identity. No Jacks were harmed in the making of this video.